Hello everyone, I'm Chris, and welcome to another episode of Wintermoon Games Tabletop Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about Archmage, which is published by Starling Games, local to my area here in New Hampshire, and this game is designed by Tim Hirma. I actually got a chance to see this game first at Gen Con. I was honored to be asked by Starling Games to review this game. Archmage has a bit of a steep learning curve, which may be intimidating for some of those more beginner members of your gaming group. I will say right off the bat that Archmage is a good game. It's definitely not a game that I would normally gravitate towards. It's considered a bit of a Euro game with a mage twist on it. There's a heavy emphasis on area control and resource management. Now, if I were to get into every minute detail of Archmage, we'd be here a while. In fact, the designer did a good job. He put out 4 how-to-play videos that are each around 10 or 12 minutes long, so it just goes to show you how much is in this game. It kind of reminded me of Scythe a little bit, where you have a couple things you can do in your turn, like move and attack and flip over a hex, but there's a lot of choices within those options that you can do on your turn. The premise of the game, basically, is that one of us in the play group is going to be crowned the new Archmage at the end of the game when the planets align to the center. The planets at the top of your player board here act as a bit of a timer for the game, so once all 6 tokens are in the middle, the last turn is triggered, and the game will end after that. So I just want to preface by saying this is the collector's edition of Archmage, which I believe comes exclusively with this board and with bags for each of your mage components. So depending on which version you have, you may or may not have these same components that you see in front of me. You're going to start by assembling the city. You're going to place the hexes down randomly. You're also going to play this ruined hex tile here in the middle of the board. The basic gist of the game is going to be area control. The control you have of a certain area will yield you resources, and places that you end your turn will also give you a variety of options. The object of the game is to kind of build the best spell book that you can build. You're going to have fundamental spells, advanced spells, and master spells, with master spells being the most valuable spells at the end of the game. Each player is going to get a deck that has those different levels of spells that you can recruit into your spell book at a certain point in your turn. The symbols are pretty intuitive. You just match the symbol and you place it at the bottom of your spell book, which is kind of showing you that the spells are ready, and when you cast them, they move up above your spell book to indicate that they have been casted and need to be refreshed. You're going to start with a pool of these little figures called followers. These are your little mage followers. They're going to move around the board and get placed on your tower board, where you're going to convert them to apprentices, and they're going to duel each other to open up more advanced spell options. On a typical turn, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take one of these planets and you're going to move it toward the middle. Doesn't matter which one, they're all random. Whatever color you move, you're going to increase that same color relic by 1. The different relics are yellow for matter, purple for time, orange for will, black for death, red for blood, and green for nature. Blood is the only resource that you don't gather normally. You actually only gather blood by battling people on the board, and I'll explain that a little bit later. After you've moved your planet, you're going to take away any temporary spell tokens that were on the board from a previous turn, and you're going to update and refresh your spell book depending on which spells you've learned or unlearned that previous turn as well. You're going to get 5 actions, or what they call movement points, on your turn. For the sake of argument, I'm just going to call them actions. You can move 1 space for 1 action, you can flip a tile over for 1 action, or you can attack someone for 1 action. So when you move your mage figure, it's called traveling. When you flip the tile over, it's called exploring. And when you attack someone, well, it's called attacking. So once I move my mage figure, I'm going to go 1. I'm going to flip this tile over for 2. And this is going to give me 1 nature, so I'm going to increase my nature by 1. Whenever you flip over a tile and explore that tile, you're going to get 1 of that resource at the time you flip it over. The resources are known as relics in this game. If I land there again, or any other player lands there again, they do not get the resource. This beginning phase is called the journey phase. Now, once during the journey phase, I can take one of my followers and I can place him on an area that is controlled by my mage. Once you place a follower onto the board, they do not move ever again for the rest of the game unless they are killed. The more followers you have on a hex, the more control you will have when it becomes contested. Once you have finished your 5 actions, you're going to move into what's called the journey's end phase, which is kind of the end of your turn. You're going to first start by taking the action of wherever your mage ended their turn. So if you end your turn on a town tile, you're going to collect relics and or followers based on the areas where you have control. If you end your turn on a camp, you're going to recruit 3 followers into your company from your supply. So you're going to have a bag or another area where you're going to keep your supply. Your company is what you have on hand and ready to deploy into the field. You can also initiate apprentices, which means you can take them from your company and move them to your tower board into the fundamental magic circle of your choice, or depending on which race you have chosen to grant relics to. Let's say I end my turn on the elves race. I can exchange relics there to take one follower or as many as I can afford and place them, because it's purple, which is the time resource or relic, and place them in the fundamental sphere of time. Let's say I also had a mage over here in the matter sphere. On my turn, I'm actually able to move both of those apprentices to the next intersecting layer of this tower board. They will have a duel. One of them, it doesn't matter, will leave the board, and this guy remains, unlocking my advanced spell level. In the same way, if I had another follower in this intersecting sphere of time and will, and I wanted to have these guys duel, I'd move them to the master spell area. They would duel. I'd remove one again, and now he unlocks the master spell part of my spell book. So there's quite a bit of upgrading and grinding and, really thinking ahead several moves to figure out where you want to place your followers, which races you want to give relics to. You can also place a follower in any sphere of magic of your choice when you end your turn on your own mage tower. Once per game, you can build your mage tower on any flipped tile that you control. So let's say I'm going to place it over here. Now I own that tile. No one can ever pass through it or end their turn on that space. So basically, if you want to initiate apprentices on your own, you can go to your mage tower and you can do it from there. So as you're unlocking spells with apprentices, you're actually going to be adding them to your spell book. They all have a cost of, relics to actually cast. You can't open up your advanced or master spells until you've had apprentices move into those locations on your tower board. There's spells that will happen immediately. There's spells that will happen and stay in effect till the caster's next turn. And there's spells that stay in effect. The last piece I want to talk about is attacking. To attack a player, you simply move your mage into their hex. You spend one action to remove them from the board, and you each get one blood relic. If a player has casted a ward of protection on that hex at a previous turn, you actually have to spend one action to remove the ward of protection first, and then spend another action to actually kill the piece that's on the hex. And just to clarify, you cannot move your mage into another hex that has another player's mage, and you cannot place a protection ward on another hex that already has a protection ward. Once all 6 planets are aligned in the center, the last turn will be triggered, and the players, starting with the player who triggered the end of the round, will start to calculate their points while other players are actually finishing their turns. It's kind of a unique scoring system. So there is a lot more about Archmage that I just can't get into. And I also want you to have a chance to experience it for yourself. Like I said, I'm not one to gravitate towards these type of games, but I actually had fun with this one. I will say, in the nearly 2.5 hours it took us to play, we were looking at the rules pretty much the entire time, trying to understand how things worked. You have a double-sided rule card that kind of gets you started, and then you have this 24-page rule book. Together, you can kind of work your way through it. The double-sided card does help you get going quickly, and it covers kind of what I just did. It covers the basics, and it gives you enough to understand the bare bones of Archmage. There's definitely a lot of things that you're going to need to play this game probably more than once. The game moves a bit slow, so if you're really into fast-paced, action-packed games, this really isn't the one for you. The theme of Archmage is, it's a Euro game. I think that the theme of mages, it really could have been any theme and it would have worked the same exact way. You start feeling like a mage once you're casting spells, but getting to that point, you may not ever get there, or if you do get there, it may have taken you a while. For me personally, because I'm a little bit of a slower player in general, I tend to not build up as quick as some other people. So I only had a handful of spells by the end of the game, because when you're moving your apprentices across your tower board and blending them into the other colors, you actually lose the knowledge of previously learned spells. So just because you had a fundamental spell, at the beginning of the game, doesn't mean you're going to have it later in the game. So that's constantly changing, which is a great mechanic, but you have to be prepared for that, because you're going to actually get points for having a bunch of spells in your spell book, so you don't really want to lose the knowledge of a previous spell. You want to try and move your apprentices around on your tower board to make sure that kind of all of your areas of spell knowledge are covered. I will say, presentation, this game is beautiful. The artwork is really well done. The layout of the board, the colors, the components, everything is really high quality, and there's a lot of care put into Archmage. You can definitely see that right out of the box. And when I had a chance actually to interview Tim Hirma at Gen Con, he'd expressed that he'd spent a lot of time on this game. I won't say how long in case he doesn't want people to know, but he did spend a lot of time designing this game, and you know what? It shows. I will say this game probably isn't for me, but I can see a lot of people out there really liking this game and sinking their teeth into it. So if you like grindy games where you're going around and spreading out across this massive land and building a spell book from the ground up, this game is for you. I actually want to play it again, and I would like to actually try the 2-player mode. I think that might be a little more enjoyable, a little bit quicker, and now that I know what I'm doing, I think I'll have a much easier time. So all that to be said, I'm going to go ahead and give Archmage 3.5 moons out of 5. It's a well-designed game, but it's not for everybody, and that's okay. I'd like to say thanks again to Starling Games for sending me this copy of Archmage, and for giving me an opportunity to review it. I really appreciate that. Archmage actually has its first expansion, Ascendant, live on Kickstarter now. They're funded, but check them out. They can never be overfunded. As always, you can check out more Wintermoon Games tabletop reviews at wintermoongames.com/reviews. Find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel to stay up to date with my video releases. And if you'd like me to review your game, or if you have a comment on Archmage, please email me at cb@wintermoongames.com. I'd love to hear from you. As always, my name is Chris, and thank you very much for watching.